Living the Life by Thom Cantrall. I live in a refrigerator. No, it's not the type that has a freezer across the top and the light comes on when you open the door. But it's a refrigerator by my definition, i.e., a refrigerator is someplace you store something until it's old enough to throw away. By that definition, my statement is correct. Let me explain. I am old, and I'm getting older. Every day I set a new personal record for longevity. Where I live is designed for housing those like me who live on Social Security and little else. The people who live here, over 70 in number, are mostly like me. We draw our Social Security, we pay all but $70 of it to the people who run this place as rent, and we exist. I am by far one of the most active and luckiest here. I have outside interests, I go places, which infuriate some of the residents here. Well, they just exist. They are the food stored in this refrigerator, waiting until they are old enough to throw away. Invariably, a doctor's appointment is the highlight of the week for most. Why is this so? The answer is fairly simple. For one reason or another, we don't have income to do otherwise. In my case, I walked away from it in a divorce. A house, 2 businesses, investments, and a 6-figure income. Why did I do this? In retrospect, it was pretty dumb, but it seemed the thing to do at the time. The lawyers were planning on dragging the proceedings out until every cent was used up in paying their fees. I don't hate my ex, I still don't. But I do intensely dislike greedy people, and those people were greedy. So I told my attorney after the 20th or so delay that I'd had it. I wanted it settled before we returned to court again. And it was. It cost me heavily, but the lawyers didn't get it. I knew I could survive, and that was all I wished to do then. I did not plan on heart problems forcing me off the playing field before I was finished. That forced me into where I am today. Don't get me wrong, I am hugely grateful for what I have. I live comfortably and can afford to eat out once in a while as well. Most here are not as lucky as I am in this area. All my life I have taught physical conservatism and financial responsibility. Once, back in the waning years of the last century, I was the chief clerk for the bishop of our ward in my church. One evening after his office hours, where we had seen 3 or 4 couples in the ward for various consultations, we were talking, and he told me something I have never forgotten. He said, "Thom, I want you to know something. As the bishop of this ward, I will see 1, maybe 2 couples in the next year who have sexual problems in their marriage bad enough to break them up. I will see 1 couple, maybe 2, with problems in faith bad enough to break them up. But I will see 3 or 4 couples a night, every night I'm here, that have money problems bad enough to break them up. For some reason, when the bills are late, the fact that he squeezes the toothpaste tube in the middle becomes intolerable." That was an earth-shaker for me. Until that moment, I hadn't realized the scope of the problem. I thought back over the people that I had seen come and go over the past few nights we had held office hours and marveled at that thought. All seemed comfortable and even affluent on the surface, but were sinking in a sea of debt beneath the surface. Debt. The great anchor of misery people chain themselves to for the want of things. Debt brings interest, compound interest, and it was the great statesman Benjamin Franklin who said over 250 years ago, when it comes to compound interest, there are two types of people: those who understand it and those who pay it. I'm only going to take a moment here to mention this, as it is not the basis for this treatise, but financial planning is essential. A budget is a must. It is a known fact that our lifestyle will automatically expand to fill the size of our income unless we control it. Having the latest model car is never a necessity. It is a luxury. It is a given that our lifestyle will automatically expand to fill our income. If we do not control our expenditures, they will, by default, control us. Have you watched how people shop for a house? They do not go out and find a nice, comfortable home that they can easily afford and buy that. No. They go apply for financing and see how much house the lender will allow them to have. Then that is their goal. Often, with two incomes included in the parameters. Then, someone gets sick and can't work, and they lose it all. So sad, isn't it? How do we avoid these circumstances? The first step is simple: stay out of debt. We really don't need to drive the latest model when one a couple of years old will do nicely for half the price. The only things anyone should ever need credit for are a home and a car. That home should not be financed beyond 15 years, nor the car beyond 3 years. Anything more is simply giving it away in interest. It is a fact. If you cannot afford the payments under those parameters, you can't afford the unit. Find one that fits those parameters, for that is the one that is affordable. For many years, I carried a credit card for emergency purposes. If I ever used it, I immediately deducted the amount from my checkbook just as if I'd written a check. That way, when it came time to pay the bill, the money was automatically in the account to do so. Today, all the credit card companies offer cash back if you use their cards. Is anyone stupid enough to believe that they are giving us anything? They simply raise the interest rates, then give you back some of your own money. It's one of the greatest legal ripoffs in the country today, and people fall for it. Credit cards are pernicious. When I was doing counseling in my church, it is unbelievable how many people were head over heels in credit card debt. People that had over 30 of these plastic nightmares, and many were over $50,000 in debt on plastic alone. And of course, there is no physical asset left for most of that expenditure. It is purely spent on consumable products or a good time. Of course, paying the minimum payment on each of these 30 credit cards will keep them in debt forever. Now, all of this said, how do we avoid becoming human offal in a residential refrigerator? What can we do to ensure that we do not find ourselves at an advanced age with a doctor telling you, if you don't retire this month, we will be burying you by the end of next month or the month after at the latest, as my doctor told me. Believe me, That does tend to catch one's attention. The secret is simple. Put money away regularly for your entire working life. How effective is this? I'm going to present a scenario using minimums here. I'm going to assume a 40-year-old person working at a minimum wage job in my own state of Washington who can only set aside 10% of his income for this program. Before anyone states this is excessive for them, let me say it is not. We will do what we wish to do, be that positive or be that negative. If we earmark this 10%, we will soon not even miss it. It will become what we do, and we will live on what is left. And we will allow our lifestyle to expand to fill that 90% of our income, but we will be planning. Now, let's run the numbers. As I mentioned, I'm going to use minimums in these computations. We're going to take our 40-year-old McDonald's worker earning the state's minimum wage of just over $10 an hour and round that back to an even 10. That means he will be earning $400 a week gross pay. Of that, $40 per week, or $172 a month, will be our investment amount. Since our worker is now 40 years old and will be working until he is age 70 until retirement, he will have 30 years to participate in our program. We will be investing $40 every week, every month of the year, for the entire 30 years. And this is essential. Leave it alone. Do not dip into it for any reason short of saving your life. This is the money we're going to use to keep you out of that refrigerator. Do not cheat. Now, how much money will this add to your retirement nest egg? $40 a week is about $2,000 per year, and if that is invested at a mere 10% return, it will result in a sum of, rounded off, $400,000. If this program is begun today, 15 July 2019, for a person 40 years of age, on 15 July 2049, at a humble 10% return, there will be over $400,000 in the account. If we decided at retirement that we didn't want to do anything that would diminish our account, we could take over $3,300 a month out and never reduce the principal. Our entire $400,000 would remain intact. If this program had begun on 15 July 1989, the retired person today, having worked for his minimum wage for his entire 30 years, he would be eligible to receive approximately $1,500 a month from his Social Security, and he would be living in the refrigerator. Now, if we add that $3,300 a month from our savings to this, we would have an income of just less than $5,000 a month and no taxes due. What does this do to the refrigerator? Who's living there now? Let's take this one step further and decide we didn't like our kids all that much and didn't want to leave them this $400,000. So let's let that balance work down as we live. If we are worried about outliving our money, we can use it to buy an annuity that will pay us as long as we live, even if it's to 150 years old. Personally, this would not be my choice. It's a waste of money. Look at it logically. Essentially, what we are doing when we do that is we are betting that we're going to live forever. The annuity company is betting that we're going to die. But the kicker is, they're using our money to bet with. What happens if we and our spouse are both working? Of course, if a person is working, they should be doing this. If the spouse was no more ambitious nor smarter, but just did the minimum as well, can we see what would happen? Just double all those numbers, his and hers accounts. Actually, it's not necessary. If we maintain the lifestyles we live for the entire 30 years we were on this program, we could easily withdraw another $3,300 a month and never run out of money. Now, we are at a monthly income of $10,000. If we had managed a 401k from employer contributions, we would now be in the range of $14,500 to $15,000 per month, and a far better lifestyle than we had during our working years. Don't you think? These are not exaggerated or overblown numbers. How many people work for minimum wage their entire life? Not many. Some for real, but not a lot. For almost everyone, this will be the absolute minimum. Now, what happens if our worker is not 40 years old, but only 30 years old? Under the same terms, with the same investment, instead of a nest egg of $400,000, that will jump up to a total of $1,300,000. With this kind of nest egg, one could withdraw interest only without touching the principal of over $10,800 per month. And this is on minimum wage. Could we live on that into perpetuity? Even if we decided to stop our program at 65 and retire then, it would still provide us with an income of over $6,400 a month just from the interest on principal. Now, the most important part. What do we spend our $40 a week on to ensure that we don't lose all our money? Stocks and bonds? Well, if you're a gambler or you have a good broker, it could be done. But I don't like to gamble with my refrigerator money, so here's what to do. Buy bulk gold and silver. Buy it in gram or ounce sizes. There are 31 grams in a troy ounce. If you spend over $10,000 on it at one time, or if you sell over $10,000 of it at one time, there are government report forms involved. If you deal in less, there is no such reporting required. Further, we have purchased our ingots with after-tax dollars, so there are no tax ramifications at all. Plus, no one has to know anything about it at all. No one needs to know what we have or even where we have it. It is the ultimate prepper's choice, is it not? I would begin by keeping my ingots in a safe deposit box in the bank, but eventually I'd have a safe secreted somewhere within my home. I might even have more than one so I could divide my assets for safety. Before we leave this lesson, what is the history of such investments? In July of 1989, gold was selling on the spot market for $390 an ounce. Today, 30 years to the day later, that spot price is $1,410 an ounce, or $45 per gram. That is an increase of 362%, or an average per annum of 12.1%. For silver, on July 1st, 1989, it sold for $5.12 per troy ounce. Today's spot price is $18.72 per troy ounce. That is an increase of $366, or 12% per year. Do I guarantee this will always be the case? Of course not. But it's never going to be lower at less. Will the earth continue to turn if you don't do this? Yes, I suppose it will. But that said, I would hate to see any of you living next to me in this refrigerator, just waiting to be old enough to be thrown away.